Hi there. Good afternoon. This is Marcus K. Dowling. I'm a journalist, freelancer, and I am a contributor to the Washington Informer Bridge. And welcome to this week's We Bridge TV. I am excited. We have a jam-packed hour of content for you. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Verizon. We also have this is the for the State of the Black Millennial issue that is currently out on newsstands right now and also available online at webridge.com. So let me start off here by bringing in Sheikah Reed from DC Young Democrats. She is I guess we could say now, veteran politician in the DC metropolitan area. And I wanted to get with her because we're, as Denise stated, 4 days away from the elections, and we have a number of issues, both locally and nationally, that we wanted to discuss. Okay, so first we're going to be going to a video from our from the editor-in-chief of the Washington Informer Bridge, Claudia Watts, who is going to give us her letter from the editor for this week's edition in video format.
Everyone, it's me, Claudia M. Watts, the managing editor of WI Bridge, and just want to share a few words with you all about this month's State of the Black Millennial issue. These are by far the most uncertain times I've encountered in my life. Situated somewhere between a pandemic, its economic impacts, and a monumental election, it's hard not to wonder which way is up. If nothing else, 2020 has been a lesson in self-determination and the power of community. It's also served as a testament to millennial ingenuity. Despite the many downs, our generation has stood on the front lines of the battle against social injustice, taken a deep dive into self-care, and reevaluated our ability to thrive through financial literacy. This month, we explore the state of the Black millennial and celebrate our ongoing spirit of perseverance. While the night may be long and full of terrors, there is always light on the other side. I hope you enjoy this month's issue.
Well, that was wonderful from Claudia. It's always a pleasure to hear from our editor. As I stated earlier, we're going to be having a conversation now with Sheikah Reed from DC Young Democrats, who I described as a now veteran politician in the DC metropolitan area. And this obviously, we're 4 days away from election 2020, and it's clearly, I think, locally and nationally, a time for great intrigue and importance. So I wanted to make sure that we had a good conversation in regards to things moving forward and next steps. Sheikah, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I'm playing. I'm breathing. I guess that's the goal right now, right?
The bar is kind of low, huh?
Exactly right. But so you're with DC Young Democrats,
yeah.
And 2020, I think, is the first election that we've had in the memory of the city where the population is such that being African American and being a politician means that you're dealing with a broader scope and depth of issues than ever before. So I wanted to ask you first about that and the notion of how is DC Young Democrats dealing with this kind of evolutionary period in DC politics?
Doing what I think our responsibility is in being engaged. So we have really been taking this opportunity to get active. So we've partnered with the National Democratic Party, and we're helping out with encouraging our membership, but also individually on our own as the executive board of the DC Young Democrats. We're doing calls to people in swing states like North Carolina and Pennsylvania. We're doing calls. We're doing and Virginia. We're doing a little event tomorrow, actually, for early voters at Exile Bar on U Street from 12 to 2 p.m. And so we're inviting voters out. We're saying, this is a time, there's scary times, between COVID and between, all of the national unrest. And we're taking this opportunity to to be present, get checked in, figure out, everyone has a role to play, and we all have to figure out what our roles are individually. And, with that, we can, that's how we find our impact.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you as well about the notion of being a young voter right now. I remember when I guess I'm 5 or 6 elections in now. I'm 42. So, but I remember like first or second election in, you're looking at the ballot, and you have like the local side, the national side, and what are those issues you feel that transcend across both sides? Because that was always the thing for me, is trying to find those core issues that like I could focus on and like understand exactly where the candidates I wanted to vote for, where they laid at insofar as like this very, like tightly scoped number of issues.
Well, I think that the issue of minimum wages, being the fund, the whole issue around policing and defunding the police, is something that I think transcends, the national and local electorate. We're not just talking about, we're not saying take money away from the police, but we're saying these dollars that are going into, in DC, it's our MPD, our Metropolitan Police Department, but these dollars that are going toward these, specific places, that they can be dispersed amongst, social services, public health, and all of, and other places where they could be used to better serve and better take care of the community in more holistic ways, instead of, aggressive police force. Additionally, the fight for War 15, which is insane that a lot of places across the country still, have minimum wages that are below $10. And there's nowhere in America where you can make $7 an hour and, be able to feed your kids and, for transportation and, have a decent quality of living. So these are things that we're still looking at. And, the Green New Deal and climate change, that's something that's really exciting nationally, as we've seen AOC and Bernie Sanders really champion, and we've seen, we've seen a lot of, the House and the Senate have really aligned behind it. But locally, DC, fortunately, the mayor's office has this initiative to, make DC independent of fossil fuels and rely on clean energy. And so that's something that, locally, we want to make sure that we're championing. And so we want to make sure that we're aware of, the policies that are truly rooted in our personal beliefs. And so, there have been so many debates and panel discussions and opportunities for people to be able to see, what are the issues and what are people talking about? What are our local council member candidate and, at-large council candidates, what are their policies? What are they focused on? So, I'm always happy to, answer questions and, give any advice to someone if they want to have a better understanding of an issue. But I always encourage people to vote based on what they think is important. And sometimes it's difficult to really figure out until you really start tuning in and hearing, hearing what the hot topics are.
Okay, so I want to dig a little bit deeper into that and ask you a simple question that has a bigger answer, I presume. What is the most important part of being young, Black, and politically active as a Democrat in DC in 2020?
That is a difficult question. I would say the most important part is self-care. I think what Claudia was.
I'm not going to ask easy questions.
I'm here for you. But, as Claudia said, we can't lean into our fear. We don't have the luxury of deciding, well, these are issues that impact someone else, or someone else is making these decisions. So, I don't have a say. We all have a role to play. Nonprofits like Color of Change, we're so active and engaged in covering such a wide range of topics, are really good to follow. If you feel like you don't know where to plug in, follow the leadership. There's some phenomenal thought leaders. You have the Urban League, you have NAACP, you have Color of Change, you have Black Lives Matter. There are all these really great organizations that are doing the work and the research. And so maybe you don't align with every single policy that every single organization has, but by engaging with them and talking to them, it really gives you the opportunity to be better informed. And then once you're informed, and then, you know, you might not be sure what your North Star is, take a moment to yourself, take a deep breath. And I think you can trust yourself to know that you're going to make the right decisions about your community. And so, you know, we have to rely on our knowledge and our you know, knowing that our ancestors have fought so hard to get us to this point. So we have the responsibility to continue to guide our country, our nation, and our communities and ourselves and our families forward. And so, you know, really own that responsibility. This is a very, very unique time. I don't think as a Black community we've ever been as impactful, not as impactful, let me take that back, but I don't think that we've really had the opportunity to have our voices be heard so meaningfully and really see just how much you know, how much we really can have an impact and see shifts in policy. You know, we've seen that there have actually been votes to defund the police in cities and municipalities. You know, if you know who your, you know, police chief is, if you know who's, you know, on your public safety committee on your council, if you're paying attention and tuning in, then we can guide these dialogues. But we can't if we're sitting out, if we're scared, if we're overwhelmed, you know, and that only happens through continual engagement. And, you know, you only got 5 days until the general election. So, you know, if you were ever tuned in, this is the time to wake up a little.
So I guess my final question, obviously these are difficult times, and this is going to be an unprecedented election day, like the physical day of November 3rd. As far as people who are going to have to wait in line to vote, it's the big question everybody has. Oh my God, I have to wait in line. These lines are going to be crazy. How would you suggest people go about self-care for that 2 to 3 to 4 hour wait? I think that's an important question to ask, especially given the nature of what this election is going to be.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts. One, I hope encourage you to take your mail-in ballot, choose your candidates. As the DC Young Democrats, we are endorsing Robert White in the at-large election. Personally, I'm just such a fan of all these young people who are running for office right now. I think it's super exciting to see. But, you know, take your mail-in ballot to the early voting boxes, drop them off from your hand into the box. There are, just yesterday, the U.S. Postal Service announced that there will, or 2 days ago, they announced that there will be delays in the mail-in. So, but with the mail-in ballot, so make sure that you take it to the box so that you don't have to wait in line. But if you are waiting in line, eat a hearty meal before, you know, get your food in before, drink a lot of water, have some warm tea in a canister if you can, bring snacks. Talk to the people who are in line with you, you know, find out what they care about, figure out what are their, you know, there's strength in community. So, you know, maybe you guys don't agree on things, but maybe, you know, you have someone to keep you company during this time, hopefully 6 feet away from you in both directions. But, you know, give yourself a chance, you know that this vote, you know, so people would not have lost their lives. And I know we say it, and I think sometimes we kind of gloss over it, but people have literally lost their lives and fought so hard for so many groups of people not to have the right to vote because of the weight and power and strength of that vote. So, you know, when we're saying that vote matters, it matters so much more than I think we're even aware of sometimes. So really take that, you know, this is your civic duty. You don't have to be a council member. You don't have to, you know, be on your ANC, but you can vote. So carry that weight and know that I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. You know, I'm having a party for you, being in line and waiting. I'm grateful. The DC Young Democrats are grateful. The DC Democratic Party is grateful. I can speak for all of the people who are across this country who are saying, get out and vote, all of the people on TV, all the people on your social media, everyone telling you to vote. So we're proud of you and we're grateful for you for exercising your civic responsibility, but do it well. Call your cousins in rural Wisconsin and Michigan and across the country, tell them to vote, tell them to vote Democratic, because we're not playing. But this is our year. This is really the year for us to use our voices. So I'm so grateful to the Washington and former Bridge team. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak today. Thank you for your wisdom and your dedication to journalism and telling these stories and uplifting our community. Excuse me, and keeping our community informed. And so Lafayette and Claudia and Marcus, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity today.
Absolutely, Shika. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna, I've already voted, and my friends, I've told them to get audiobooks. So there we go. So
what did you listen to? What audiobooks?
I'm telling them to just like get, invest in Audible. That's my thing. So yeah, we're gonna keep it moving. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and definitely we'll talk soon.
Have a great day. Bye.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on. I am very excited. Every month we have like 4 or 5 articles that end up in Washington Former Bridge, and they're all, highly informative. I'm a writer every month. And Erica Johnson has a piece in this month's Bridge in regards to millennial voting and issues in regards to millennial voting. And I wanted to make sure that we had her on as well, because as much as we're talking about getting out the vote and voting issues, I also wanted to talk about just the nature of millennial engagement as well. So let's pull Erica in here and let's have this conversation. Erica, how's it going? You're muted.
Always got to have one of those moments.
Oh, good. Of course. Good. I knew him out earlier, and you told me that offline, and I thank you for that. That happens.
Got to look good. Got to look good.
I try. So yeah, you look good yourself. You look great. But as far as millennial voting and millennials is an issue in 2020, I wanted to get your take in regards to why this is a problematic thing, potentially.
That's a big question.
Yeah, we start off big, we get small.
So I wouldn't say that it's a problem per se. I think that millennials are older now. So there's a dichotomy now. There's like younger millennials it goes from 1981, I believe, to like 1996 is the age range for millennials. So now you have millennials who are starting families, have kind of sort of lived a different experience. And then you have younger millennials that have either just graduated, just getting into the workforce. So there's a dichotomy between the younger and older millennials in coming into this election. So they have different issues that they're facing because they're at different stages of their life. So the focus for each one will be a little bit different. So I think you have to look at the whole, look at millennials as a whole, and both parts of it before you can say, okay, there is just a problem. And then when you drill down into millennials, 44% of them are diverse. And so that adds another layer of complexity to millennial voting or being participants in this election, because it means different things to different people. Not only are they, some of them older in different life stages, in different phases of their life, some of them are younger and just starting out and haven't had the opportunity to experience a lot of things that older generations and or even older millennials have. So I think that plays a factor into what their focus is now, what they're looking for from an election, what they're looking for from a president, and whether or not they show up to the polls.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When I was thinking about this issue, I've been noting that the issue with COVID being problematic has made it, like campaigning an issue, clearly, but even deeper, attempting to be one candidate and attempting to parse yourself out amongst this key and important voting block in so many different ways is fascinating. Because, with Latinos becoming like, a lead demographic, and then breaking that down amongst like first time voters versus regular voters. And then with the Black population, obviously being key and important in this, situation. Like, I think there's so many different ways to cut it that this is not necessarily even the best election to really stare at it completely, but it's good to like have an awareness of it so that moving forward we can look at this even deeper as far as like people that are campaigning for office 2024, 2020, 2028, 2032.
This is
I've been thinking about a lot about that.
But this one is the most important election of our lifetime. We have a global pandemic.
Right.
We have civil and social unrest. There's not going to be another election like this one ever. Yeah. At least I would hope we don't have a pandemic.
No. I just it fascinates me, if only because all of these issues are so cross-cutting, and we have yet to actually like engage them in a lot of discourse. And I'm fascinated by your thoughts about that, kind of like being a voter, but not necessarily being, catered to as well as you'd like to be.
I think it's hard for a lot of people to be catered to. As I am a millennial voter and I did vote, right. But I feel like it's really hard to cater specifically now with everything that's happening there's a global pandemic. There's so many layers to that. So now you have senior citizens who are at higher risk. How are they getting to the polls? And what does that look like for them standing in line for hours? What if they have a disability? There's so many layers that have been brought to bear with this global pandemic that it's hard to just parse out what are the millennial voters going to do, even though now they are the largest voting bloc. And then relying on them heavily because of, usually poll workers tend to be older, like older retired individuals who have, done their job and now they want to keep being active within their communities. What does that look like now? LeBron James started his own initiative to get people out to vote, where he got like a lot of NBA centers, especially in major metropolitan areas, to allow people to be able to have the chance to vote. And there's a lot of layers to that too, like being in a suburban versus an urban area. How do you get to the polls? How long is it going to take you to wait? And of course, in urban areas, because we're already living built off like gentrification, the society that has already been built is not helping. It's actually brought those disparities. They brought those disparities closer to home, basically. So now we could really see, how impactful the healthcare system is on minorities. How is that impacting millennials? How is that? It's not even just millennials. It's also Gen Z, the people that are coming after us. So how is that shaping what we do going forward and looking at those things? And I think now that people are at home, they have a lot more time to look at the things that matter to them. And I think now more than ever that you'll see a lot more young people, especially millennials and Gen Z, out at the polls this time around.
Right. So I wanted to focus in. I was thinking about this again. I was thinking about this last night, and I was trying to put my brain power into this, and I failed. But so I figured that you could ideally, hopefully, be successful. Thinking about how to tailor, if you were advising a candidate, how would you tailor their millennial push in 2 or 3 issues that cross-cut across these, unique, divergent cross sections? That's why I'm trying to figure that one out, because I think that's obviously moving forward the best ideal initial way to, position this.
I would say for millennials, if you're a politician trying to cut across the things that matter to them, student loan debt is one of the biggest issues facing millennials now. Is one of the reasons why they haven't been able to reach a lot of cultural milestones of adulthood, like, getting married or starting a family. So all of these things. So right now in the US, it's 1.6 trillion is the US student loan burden overall. And minorities, particularly Black minorities, tend to borrow at higher rates than their white counterparts. So there's a lot of issues that face all of millennials and people in Gen Z as well, all of millennials, but then specific issues also touch minorities a little bit harder because of the history of oppression that we've had in this country. So student loan debt is a big one. Education is another one, because now you're going to have the rising cost of education has increased faster than the income for people or incomes in general. So like if you have a And now with COVID, we don't really know what the effects are going to be over time. So having access to education is going to be super important for the longer term. I would say also student loan debt, but then also being able to reach the milestones and owning a home or to whatever you choose to do, like in your longer term. If you want to own a home, if you choose to have a family, being able to be financially stable are things that people generationally have been interested in, and specifically millennials and Gen Z. So I think, and then also using platforms to reach them at the level that they are at. So, Instagram is more for younger users. Facebook tends to be like older. You get a lot of a mix of everybody, older, younger, millennials, Gen Z on there, but primarily older millennials and older generations. Then you have Twitter. So you have to meet people where they are and understanding the demographics of who you're talking to. And sometimes radio might be the best option to speak to your demographic. So I think using those things, honing in on those tools that you have available to you to speak the message that you want on the medium and platform where the people you're trying to talk to.
Right. So I guess my final question would be looking forward to post 2020, whomever wins. I think that one of the more fascinating issues that's going to arise is when you have millennials in Congress and millennials in municipalities who tend to have not as divergent concepts when it comes to policy and forward, thinking concepts as far as, bringing people together. Your thoughts about that and kind of like what that looks like, because I'm fascinated by the bloc obviously that's forming in the Democratic Party and folks like Tim Scott on the Republican side who tend to be a little bit, I think, more open-minded towards the idea of coming towards a middle ground. Your thoughts about that?
So you're asking whether or not
about millennials having some sway in Congress, and thoughts about that.
I think in the longer term, there may be people want change, but what kind of change they want, because there's not a guarantee that there's going to be a lot of younger millennials in Congress. There may be an upswing in that depending on how things shake up in this next election. But what that means, when you become a politician, you kind of sort of have to have a global perspective and not just focusing on who you are as an individual. Just like when Barack Obama was president, he couldn't just focus on being Black. He had to be the president for the nation, for the world, basically, because everybody watches what America does. So if you're going to be, whether you're a millennial or not, your focus is going to be your constituent base. And so working together with those politicians to achieve the policies that meet your constituents' needs is always going to be should be your primary focus, because that's how you got elected in the first place.
Right. I agree. I think that it just fascinates me that there's like blocks of millennials that exist in Congress and they're standing there together like, we are going to do this. And it's a unified front that I think represents something that we haven't seen in Congress and seen in politics like ever, of people of that age bracket doing something so unified.
I think that's also an important thing. There's a lot of unprecedented things happening, and I hate using that word. It's an unprecedented time because everybody says that all the news.
It's true. It's the best word.
But there's a lot of things happening in the world right now, and nothing brings people together more than tragedy, unfortunately. So the things happening now, I hope that what the millennials are doing now will continue even after the election that we have, because it's one thing to be in the moment and want to be a part of history, but it's another thing to continue making history after the dust settles.
Absolutely. Erica, I've loved this conversation. If you can give people a sense of where they can reach out to find you, I'd love that.
I'm on Instagram at the original Femme Fatale. I am on Twitter, but I don't use that. It's called ePoppins1. But thank you for having me on the Washington Informer Bridge.
Like I have a political science background, political science major from college, and it's always cool to be able to be on the same sides of the coin, but different parts with somebody and be able to, have that conversation. It's always wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was Erica Johnson. And up next, I have Darius Baxter from Good Projects. We'll be discussing a wonderful social justice campaign for African Americans. And we'll have a commercial and we'll come back.
The vote is the most powerful, non-violent tool we have in a democratic society. We must not allow the power of the vote to be neutralized.
Yes, well, welcome back. Thank you. And I wanted to pull Darius Baxter in here from Good Projects. Darius, how's it going?
Hey, guys.
Hey, so definitely. Thanks for being on.
Yeah,
we're talking about the Black Voices for Black Justice Fund.
Yes. We're really excited to have launched it this week. We're really, really excited.
Yeah, definitely. So I have the press release here, and I get like tens of hundreds of press releases every week, but I don't get ones that say that there's a commitment to support the activists, artists, and organizers who are defining the way the Black body must be respected, the Black body must be protected, and the Black body must be treated with dignity in America. That's just a mind-blowingly powerful statement. So I wanted to get your reflections on why so direct at this time and why so empowered and powerful.
Well, thank you for opening with that, Marcus. I'm really glad that will set the tone for our time that we get to talk today. But when we were first approached by Tonia Wellens at the Greater Washington Community Foundation, after we returned from the Purpose Tour, it was very clear when talking to her that she wanted to work with us because of our bold ideas. And because in this moment in time, we weren't scared to stand up and say that we are Black leaders. The Black Voices for Black Justice Fund is not for the shy, it's not for the meek, it's not for the humble. It's for those that in this moment in time are willing to stand up and say, hey, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm willing to stand in front of the things that I'm doing in communities in order to change the way, to the point that you just read, the way that the Black body is treated in America. We have a lot of work that needs to be done, and if we operate with a passive mindset, or a mindset that we're going to be scared of who we are as a people, then we're never going to get anything done.
Right. So as far as thinking about this in, context of an election, just being able to like have this idea come to fruition and then being able to look forward no matter what happens. I think that's the thing I've been trying to push so much in, hosting and talking to folks is like, no matter what happens, like the next steps forward have to be the same and have to have the same level of force and impact behind them. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was having a very interesting conversation about this last night, and I'll just go over it briefly. Every generation of the movement for the liberation of the Black body in America has adopted a different approach. Take it back to even before MLK, somebody that he looked up to very deeply was Gandhi. And Gandhi took this very nonviolent approach and a direct service approach, where being in the community, living a life of poverty, to associate yourself with the people that you're working with. Pick up a Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X who took a similar approach, but a little bit different. They added in this element of organization, literally the organizations behind them, supporting them as they move forward in their fight for equality and justice. And then after that, you had a generation of folk highlighted by an Oprah Winfrey, highlighted by Robert Smith, that were able to benefit from the productivity of that era and were able to create create ownership and be able to take a part of the market of the American economy. And now we have our generation, we have younger millennials, and we have Gen Z, who are able to look back and reflect on the history of leaders that have come behind us and take the best practices from all of them. But the thing that is most upsetting, and one of the reasons why we launched the Black Voices for Black Justice Fund, is although we've created a movement that is decentralized, what that's done is left a lot of our leaders out on islands by themselves. And what we wanted to do, not just through our words, but through our actions and through our wallet, is make a sizable commitment to say, okay, I understand you don't have to be a part of an organization to be making change in the world today. And we understand that, and we see you, and we want to be able to support our leaders. And again, not just through words, but through actions, through bold statements, through bold actions, through bold policies, through bold activities and innovations and initiatives. And that's why we're here today to announce the Black Voices for Black Justice Fund, which everyone can apply for at blackjusticefellows.org.
Yes, definitely. So if you could speak to the term equity, I feel like we don't talk enough about Black equity insofar as being, like Black people, receiving funds or having ideas that are seen in equal standing to those of white people who have, like a social justice leg up. Just thoughts about that.
Well, at the end of the day, this is a conversation that's come up for years. And there's the meme that goes around that everybody always refers to with the child standing over the fence in the different boxes. And we talk about equity and what it looks like. Okay, if everybody gets the same box, but kids are different heights, you still can't see over the fence. But at the end of the day, we look at this country, look at Washington, D.C. I know a lot of this audience is coming from Washington, D.C. The argument has been made, every student, regardless of where you are in this city, has access to go this school choice. You can go to any school you want in the city. But look at this virtual environment that we're in right now. Okay, everybody got a laptop. Everybody got a hotspot. So that means that they should be caught up to the same place. But what they don't factor in is students like the ones, while I'm in my costume today, we opened up our learning hub down here in Southwest. You have students that aren't eating every day. You have students that maybe have parents that aren't literate. We can talk about equity all day, but if we have people in positions of power that don't understand everything that it takes to get a student to be able to even be to the place where they're at a starting line, and then to think about their families, where they're able to get to a point where they're at least at the starting line to be able to run the race with everybody else. Brian Stevens said something that was so powerful. The opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. So I think the bigger question is not about equity in this country. You can give everybody $10. That doesn't mean that everybody will know what to do with it. But at the end of the day, how from the time that a young Black person, a young brown person, a young indigenous person is born into this country, that we're understanding that the generations that they are behind financially, academically, access, opportunity, and we're working towards those things so that by the time they are able to matriculate into adulthood, that they are caught up to their peers so that we can get to a point of true equity in this country.
Yes. So as far as ideally, looking at this fellowship, who are the types of fellows that you hope are applying and receiving this kind of benefit? I feel like this is a phenomenal opportunity. And ideally, you want to see this in the hands of somebody who's going to, take it and expand upon it in, unbeknownst ways.
Well,
so your thoughts about that?
I'll leave it kind of out there like this, Marcus. I think you're actually somebody that we would be looking for. Lafayette, who put this amazing event together. Claudia, who he works with. DC over the last few years has shown that we literally have the opportunity to lead the culture, not just in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but around the country. Activism in 2020 looks completely different than it did in 1960. Activism can look like a brother like Yadia, who's leading the Don't Mute DC movement in DC. Activism can look like the school teacher, maybe at a KIP. Activism can even look like a brother like Marcus Goodwin, who's done an amazing job over the summer, bringing to issues ones that we didn't even see. There's so many different forms of activism in this city. It's not for me to go out there and say, hey, this is the line that we want everybody to focus on and apply along this this line here. No, tell us, hey, this is how I'm being an activist in this moment in time. Is it that you're using a social media platform to share a message? Is it that maybe nobody ever has heard of you before, but you've been, supporting grandmas over in Ward 8 for the last 15 years? There's so many different forms of activism going on in this city, Marcus. I wouldn't dare put us in a box because there's so much creativity. There's so much love going around this city. We've already gotten over 200 applications in a little under 36 hours. And some of the things that I'm seeing, I couldn't even imagine that people have dedicated their lives to doing these things. So I pose it back to you, Marcus. I'm really excited about the applicants that we've already had, and we're going to be leaving the applications over to November 20th, and I'm excited to see what else we can get in.
Absolutely. So if you could just give me just explain one more time where people can apply for that, and it's been a pleasure to have you on.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sorry, I got the notification that I was coming on maybe about 15 minutes before I
you're
got
more
here.
than okay, brother. You're great.
Okay.
Where can people apply?
No,
That's what we need to know.
Well, obviously, everybody can go across social media at Black Justice Fellows, and then also on the web, blackjusticefellows.org. We're really looking forward to having as many people apply as possible. Again, we are giving out $30,000 awards to individuals here in DC, Maryland, and Virginia to support their activism over the next 12 months. You do not have to be a part of an organization. The only requirement is that you are doing something to make Black lives better in this city, and that you have been an activist for at least 1 year. So we're really looking forward and excited to having as many people as possible apply, Marcus.
That's phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for your time, brother. Get back to work. Thank you for taking some time.
We have a Halloween party, man. Come on down to the Halloween party.
I might have to. I might have to. Yep, I don't have my costume on, but I'll.
What am I? What am I?
Who are you?
What am I? You got to guess.
Oh man, you look like Jimi Hendrix. I don't know.
Oh, there we go, man. There we go. Let's go. You got it, bro.
Right on, right on. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.
All right, have a good one. Oh man, I want to run through a brick wall right now. It's exciting. So we're gonna pull in now with the Hustlers Guild. They are my absolute favorite group in DC right now. They are doing outstanding work as far as reaching out in the digital divide during the midst of COVID to engage with young millennials attempting to, forge forth as far as, becoming young professionals. So I want to get with Kevin Beckford right now, who's the co-founder of the Hustlers Guild, and talk about voter awareness. So Kevin, what's going on?
Peace and blessings, Marcus. It's so good to join you today. I'm really excited for our conversation. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said in my introduction, you guys are my favorite group in all of the city right now, probably nationally, as far as reaching out and doing the necessary work digitally during COVID.
We love to hear it. Thank you for your support. It's truly an honor to do this work.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to the point where you're at an election and you are directly impacting the lives of so many millennials, and then you hear, like we talked earlier with Erica, we're talking about this is an important election, super important election for millennial engagement. What goes into the point where you and Yasmin and everybody are sitting down trying to figure out how you're going to get out, get out the vote amongst your group of people?
Sure. So first and foremost, Marcus, again, just have to say thank you for that brilliant introduction about the Hustlers Guild and the organization. We about 3 or so months ago, 4 months ago, really made a pivot to really focus our primary attention to civic engagement, to getting young Black and brown people involved in the political process. We are living in some unprecedented times. I too, like Erica, hesitate to use that word unprecedented, but it truly is, right? Between COVID, between the realities of a hashtag being introduced on the daily, people, young Black and brown people are living in an interesting time and have questions as to, what is in our policy that's affecting, the livelihoods and the ways in which we're able to live now. There's a lot of trepidations and just desire for information around policy and practice, and and there's also a lot of angst with the political process, right? I think a lot of unfortunate realities for Black and brown people have been longstanding, but they've been highlighted during this time, right? And so we made this pivot to really engage young people, to provide information and to show them how they can show up, right? And make their voices heard.
Right. So as far as looking at that, I love the fact that you guys have really engaged with the celebrity community. I think that there's no easier way to get people excited about something and to combine intellectualism with the commodity of cool. And when you put that together, then dynamic things happen. So if you could speak to some of the folks that you have on board, I won't ruin this, but I'll let you explain exactly what's going on, because there are probably more people that have come on board since I got the last email about it. So definitely let me know.
Yeah, right. And so a big part of our effort in engaging young folk civically was to make participating in the process cool. Deservingly so. Again, a lot of folk have angst and disappointment with the political process. Many folk are attuned to the fact that there are more than one way to participate civically than to vote, right? But the reality is that everything pivots from the vote. And so in combination with having honest and authentic conversations in our programming, we've partnered with a host of celebrities to bring awareness to voting and to discuss the intricacies of voting and to address those trepidations and concerns and answer those questions that folk have. And so through in partnering with When We All Vote and Matt Barnes, who's been a dear friend of the Hustlers Guild for a while, we launched a series of workshops and events targeting HBCU students specifically across the nation, working with we targeted student leaders from these organizations to essentially ensure that they have the tools necessary to train students on their to train and to teach rather students about things like absentee voting and early voting, many things that are important, especially to first-time voters. Again, with the trepidation, it's all about that many have. It's all about making it cool, right? And so, in addition to hosting these workshops and pep rallies with the likes of Matt Barnes, we've brought Vince Carter into the fold. We brought Chris Paul into the fold. We brought rapper Chica into the fold, right? And so we had these events with these celebrities to really, bring out the cool element of it. But then they talk real stuff, right? And so it wasn't just like they're getting on and hyping themselves up on these calls and these pep rallies that we hosted with students. They're very transparent and honest, about where they sit in the political process, and particularly how this moment for many of them has been motivating, right? And so it was powerful, for example, to hear Chris Paul on one of our calls talk about the growing excitement in participating in the political process amongst NBA players, right? And now more than ever, NBA players are, there's always been a desire to be socially active, but it's increased dramatically, and they're all like a part of the process even more now, right? So hearing that conversation juxtaposed to that given by Vince Carter, who was in the league at an earlier time, and it was a different space in terms of social and political engagement, was powerful, right? And so hearing Chris Paul talk about, what motivated him to really get involved, and other players to step up to the plate and get involved more, and how they're using their platforms to essentially get others to vote, was pretty dope.
Right. So as far as working with HBCUs, I feel like you're like hitting this target directly, like exactly the people you want to hit. Any thought to like the idea that you're birthing an entirely new generation of young Black progressive leaders out of this? Was that like part of the Hustlers Guild like concept initially, and now you're seeing it kind of like emerge in a different format? What exactly is going into that?
That's a great question. I would just say that it's just the reality to which we live. I think Gen Z, especially, is a different type of organization, rather a different type of group, rather. They don't play games. They ask questions. They are critical. They don't take things for face value. They have seen generations before drop the baton in some ways, and so they're committed to finishing the race strong. And we learned that on our calls with them. So partly, for us, there was some intention, right, to tap into this growing progressive, exciting base of voters. But the greater part of it really was addressing the changing realities. I do think we have to keep it real and keep it honest. What's worked in past will not work moving forward. And so through authentic engagement, with younger voters, particularly those at HBCUs, in our case, we're able to really be ahead of the curve.
Right. So as far as just like looking at this, like this final crux, like what are you looking at for the next couple of days as far as like, Sunday, Monday to get these to like put it over the top to get people to really, finish up strong?
Sure, great question. So Erica touched upon this earlier when she spoke of the power of social media, but that's been a big part of the work that we've really been pushing out, right? And so in addition to hosting these workshops and these pep rallies with HBCU students, we've engaged in a pretty massive social media campaign. You can follow I Am the Vote on Instagram, hashtag I Am the Vote. We launched, again, to the point of making voting cool. This campaign is spearheaded by celebrities. So the likes of Claudia Jordan, comedian Samore, so many celebrities are posting using this hashtag and using and participating in this campaign to let others know that, hey, I have a voting plan. Hey, I am going out to vote, right? And so we're just really going to push that out on social to the greatest extent possible. We also partnered with Axe and Russell Westbrook to engage in another social media campaign. Russell did a voiceover and on an amazing ad, posted it on social. And so that maximizes, just there, the pool of voting. And so spreading that far and wide, while also, addressing continuing to address student leaders and all who are interested on the technicalities rather of voting in these final days. So we're going very hard to make sure that people are engaged in the process.
Fantastic. Well, if people wanted to get in touch with what you're doing here at the Hustlers Guild, reaching out online, how would they be able to do so?
You can follow us on social at the Hustlers Guild on Instagram, on Twitter. You can visit our website, hustlersguild.org. Keep abreast of everything we got going on. But one thing I want to just say on a quick note. The work doesn't stop here, and that's the one thing we've learned. Just in terms of the main takeaway is that it does not stop on election day, right? As to what the point you said, Marcus, a lot of folk are getting excited and they're getting revved up about participating in the political process, and we have to continue to engage young people beyond this point, and so we're making it a mission to do so.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up. Keep up the energy. Like it's absolutely important.
My brother, truly appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Anytime. All right. Well, that was Kevin Beckford from the Hustlers Guild. And again, check out what they're doing. Like seriously, if you ever want to see one group that's really knocking it out of the park consistently in the DC metropolitan area, as far as the digital and real-time divide during COVID, Hustlers Guild are the people. We're about to get into the Sounds of the DMV segment. It's turned into another one of my favorite segments that we do weekly here with Bridge TV. This week we'll be focusing on the Jogo Project, who tonight will be playing on the HR Records live stream on Instagram at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you're going to get a little taste of who they are prior to tonight's performance. So take it away, Lafayette, with the Jogo Project.
We're comprised of both members from the jazz community and the go-go community, and we all come together on one stage to create a new fusion sound. But we're committed to keeping the jazz element strong while keeping that old school go-go pocket driving.
Yeah, come on. DC, how y'all feel out there? Wherever you are, turn your radio up, turn your stereo up. In here. Hey yo, Dante.
So my mom used to take me down to Howard University, and we would ride the 70 bus down Georgia Avenue. And while riding the bus, you would hear people blasting go-go music out of their cars. There's the cell phone shop in Georgia and Florida where they've always got something cranking. So it just became something I became accustomed to in my city, hearing go-go music just around on the streets. Then when I left DC, I went to New York for a few years, It was something that did not exist up there. You don't hear go-go at all.
Out there.
One of my driving purposes in playing music has just always been to reach for something new and always be creating. So with the Jogo project, this has just been a natural evolution from my background playing jazz music. A lot of people in my generation don't appreciate the legacy that came before us. Buck Hill, Keter Bett, Marvin Gaye, Roberta Flack, obviously Chuck Brown. I've always had a great admiration for the musicians that came out in DC. So I received a phone call from a drummer in town, Robert Mousy Thompson, who played with James Brown before James Brown passed away. And he said, "Hey man, Chuck needs a sax player. Can you make a gig next week?" I said, "Yeah, I can make it." So he had me call Brian, who was Chuck's sax player at the time, and Brian sent me the music, and I basically listened to nothing but Chuck Brown for the next 2 weeks just to learn the music for the gig. I played with Chuck for the last year of his life until he passed away in 2012. And it was a very formative year because I had never played in a horn section quite like that, never played high energy go-go for an hour, 2 hours straight. But Chuck welcomed me warmly, and it was a great experience. Well, Chuck Brown was a jazz and blues guitarist, so one thing we do with the Jogo project is just try to continue that tradition of keeping jazz and blues a strong element of go-go music. If you look at a lot of the funk legends, their horn sections are way in the back of the stage, but Chuck kept his horns up front so that they could be seen and heard just as well as the vocal front line.
Well, once again, that's the Jogo project. You can check them out, their fusion jazz and go-go sounds, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the HR Records IG live stream. And again, I'm a big fan of what they do. And that story about Chuck Brown and the last year of his life, incredible. So, again, November 3rd, it's forthcoming. Vote. This is the most dynamic election of modern times. That's a point that we've made over the last hour, and will continue to be made heretofore until the 3rd. So definitely get out the vote. Also check out the latest edition of the Washington Informer Bridge. It is currently available inside of the Washington Informer that's on newsstands right now, and also you can check us out online at WeBridgeDC.com. Shout out to the guys at Candor Labs for putting together the site. As well, you can also check out our, sponsors. We have Verizon sponsoring this month for the State of the Black Millennial issue. It's truly been a pleasure to speak with everyone on this episode. So once again, my name is Marcus K. Dowling. I'm a contributor to the Washington Informer Bridge. You can find me online at Marcus with a C, K, DOWLING. And again, until next week, have a great time. Have a great day. Goodbye.